Hello and welcome to the Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of the Gaggle, Peter Lavelle, host also of RT's talk show, Crosstalk. Well, the European Union Parliament has been very busy recently. Its Foreign Affairs Committee has drafted a proposal that it wants the EU to adopt, and of course the EU Parliament to adopt, and all the EU institutions to adopt. And we can roughly summarize it as regime change in Moscow. This is a fascinating document, and we'll post this along with this podcast, because it's almost unbelievable the hysteria that emanates in this document, in this recommendation for EU policy toward Russia. So I'll just read a few items from it. It's actually quite short, but for instance, it says, whereas Russia is continuing its aggressive behavior on the border with Ukraine and interfering with acts of terrorism on the territory of EU member states such as Czechia. And then whereas, this whereas is a kind of pompous legalese, as if you're drafting some war crimes indictment. Whereas the situation in Russia is deteriorating dreadfully. Note this emotive adverb, dreadfully, because of President Putin's systematic repression of democratic forces. And then talks about Navalny. And then twice in this very short document, it suggests that Putin is waging a war against the people of Russia. So it's waging a war against the people of Russia. And then it goes on to this recommendation as to what policies the EU should adopt. And it says the EU, together with NATO and international partners, should deter Russia and keep stability within the Eastern Partnership, which coincidentally also involves Belarus, which is regarded as an ally of Russia's, but be that as it may. Then the EU should be ready to call for the exclusion of Russia from the SWIFT payment system. The EU must have a clear goal and plans on how to cut its dependency on Russian gas and oil. And then it says the EU should continue its work on the containment of Russian hybrid threats. And then the EU should establish with the United States a transatlantic alliance to defend democracy globally and propose a democracy defense toolkit, which should include joint actions on sanctions, anti-money laundering policies, rules on the conditions of economic and financial assistance. And then it talks about, again, halting the Nord Stream 2 project, talking about the Global Magnitsky Act. And then, amusingly, it says the EU should establish partnerships on its sanctions policy with EU-based non-governmental organizations such as Bellingcat. Now, it's very strange because, first of all, Bellingcat is an English organization. England is no longer in the EU. Second of all, to refer to Bellingcat, which is entirely funded by governments, as a non-governmental organization is bizarre. And then it essentially says that we should EU should initiate and contribute to the international investigation of crimes committed by President Putin's regime against the people of Russia, together with the crimes committed by Mr. Lukashenko's regime of Belarus. I don't quite know who exactly is going to do the investigation and the prosecution, what jurisdiction the EU has on these matters. And then it says the EU should confront the Russian language propaganda of President Putin's regime. So presumably he's talking about all of the Russian media.
Because they speak Russian.
Yeah, exactly. Because because I don't know what there's limited mileage for Russian language propaganda within the EU, and support the establishment of free Russia television with 24/7 airtime. And then it says the EU must be prepared not to recognize the Parliament of Russia and to ask for Russia's suspension from international organizations with parliamentary assemblies if the 2021 parliamentary elections in Russia are recognized as fraudulent. Now you kind of asked, well, who's going to do this recognizing? Who's going to say it's fraudulent? Well, I assume that it'll be the EU that recognizes it as fraudulent. So it's like they say it's fraudulent, and they say, well, we don't recognize you. Away with you. You have no legitimacy.
George, just bear with me just for a second here. I'm going to look out the window and see if I can see the war that's going on.
War against the,
let me check. Let me update you.
Please do that.
All right. Here we go. Nope.
No war.
Sorry, not maybe in my neighborhood. Okay, there's no war going on out there.
But what is interesting? What's interesting about all this is the rabid hysteria that underlies this document. It's also a little incongruous as to at the moment, while the United States is making nice with Russia, desperate to get this summit.
And Lavrov.
Right, yeah, exactly. Getting its summit with Putin. The EU has gone absolutely berserk. And that applies incidentally to the UK, although it's out of the EU. UK is also completely berserk on Russia. And that's a very interesting question. What's really driving? Because during the Cold War, the height of the Cold War, this wasn't the tone of the EU. I mean, this is this complete, terrorism. We have to fight. Putin's war against the Russian people. There is an absolute insanity here, and that I think is the most intriguing aspect of it. Where is this coming from?
Yeah, well, where's Macron's war on the yellow vest? I digress. Right. Okay. First of all, where this came from was the European Parliament. No. Some of you may ask, what is that? And that is an important question.
Right.
The European Parliament is a parliament that nobody cares about, nobody knows about. And I was going to say 9 out of 10 out of 10 Europeans that you have, who represents you in the European Parliament, they won't know and they won't care, okay? Right. Now, where do these initiatives come from? From the MPs that are from the Baltic republics, Poland, and other Eastern, former Warsaw Pact countries. That's where it comes from. It's really quite remarkable that some of these politicians in the Baltic states, they never write about domestic affairs within the European Union. It's just about Russia, okay? And they make complete careers out of it, okay? And this hysteria.
But I think they do get, but they do get support from a variety of European lefty parties. I mean, the various Greens in throughout the EU, who are also extraordinarily hostile toward Russia. And you have to then think in terms of there's some cultural, historical, theological animus toward Russia. The nonsense that it's any kind of a security threat is we can dismiss that out of hand. It's some sort of a cultural threat that they feel that.
But this is something that I observed in the 1990s, and I warned my Eastern European friends about the European Union. Is that it's the European Union? You think you're just going to get richer, and you may just get richer. I mean, when the Eastern Bloc, when I saw it in the 1980s, with a few exceptions, in the Czech lands there was pretty good prosperity. Poland was very poor, almost in a depression, and Hungary, well, they had kind of this hybrid, they had entrepreneurs there, so there was a semblance of some kind of prosperity, but it was a pretty poor part of the Europe. Let's be honest about it. After the Second World War being completely decimated, no one in that part of the world likes to admit that it was the Soviet Union that industrialized them, gave them an industrialized base. These were all very poor pastoral countries, with the exception of the Czech lands, before the Second World War. When the Cold War came to an end, these places had industry. I mean, look at what's the company called, Skoda, the Czech automotive works. Okay, I mean, within weeks of the end of the Warsaw Pact, Volkswagen was in there. Boom! They took the best of what the Eastern Bloc had, and they've done really good work with it since. Okay, but the point I'm bringing up here is that being part of the European Union wasn't what they thought it would mean. Okay,
Right.
I mean, there's something, it's very historical. We can make a separate video about it, when I'd be very happy to do it. The politics of backwardness in Eastern Europe. There's something very real to that. Okay, and so when you joined this club, you thought automatically everyone's going to be walking around in Armani suits, okay, and driving Jaguars or something like that. And so what one of the primary issue that kept the identities of these countries during being part of the Soviet bloc was their cultural identity. And now they're doing it again, but focusing it not against communism, but against Russia. And it's all part of this identity project.
Right, but I don't really think that that's really what's the most important. I mean, that is an aspect of this, particularly in the case of the Baltic states and Poland, certainly. But we're talking about the German Greens here. We're talking about the Green parties in Western Europe. They are rabidly ideologically hostile toward Russia. And I think they are also
but that's
important driving,
yes, but
within this movement in the European Parliament.
No, Russia's a conservative country. That's why these people rabidly hate Russia, because Russia has it's economically social progressive, but it's culturally very conservative. And people, the Green parties and other such people, ideologically driven people, they cannot stand that hybrid. For them, it should not work. It is illogical, and any attempt should be destroyed. I thank you for stepping in and pointing that out. I agree with you. And that's what makes a lot of this bizarre, even kind of humorous, because there's so many different ways that they want to attack something. For some, it's for their cultural identity. Others, it's for their ideology. And this is how you get it all mixed in. I really want to point out the European Parliament has no standing sway. It's just literally a talk shop, because it is the executive powers of the European Union that makes policy and sends it downward. Policy never comes up from the European Parliament, never. It's all they do is ratify.
Right. But as we've already seen, we've done a number of shows about Joseph Borrell, the EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs, that EU is indeed very hostile in terms of its foreign policy toward Russia. I mean, Borrell went to Moscow and started berating his hosts about Navalny. I mean, can you imagine any serious foreign dignitary going to a host country and then start lecturing them about somebody who's in prison? I mean, particularly as he had been warned that you go down this road and we're going to be extremely displeased. I'm going to make life very unpleasant for you. He nonetheless went ahead and did it. So there is an extraordinary hostility in the UK. We hear the stuff that Dominic Raab, the foreign secretary, says. We hear all this stuff from Boris Johnson. It's an extraordinary animus toward Russia. And what's odd about all of this is that it seems to be now taking a much harsher tone than Washington, because it's usually the other way around. You got the hawks in Washington ranting and raving about Russia, and then you have the Europeans. We got to live with our neighbors. We got to do business and trade. We don't want anything unpleasant. So it's now the roles have been reversed, and I do think that's a fascinating development.
Well, I think it's kind of a neo-orientalism as well. I think that covers everything. Okay. I think because of the melees that you see in the European Union, they're looking for somebody to blame for it. I mean, the European Union is a pretty shoddy operation. Okay. I mean, it's deeply corrupt. It's structurally, it is almost antithetical to democracy. And they go around pointing at other people's lack of democracy. I mean, the European Parliament is just a waste of space and a waste of money.
Right.
I mean, it was designed that way. Maybe it will become something one day, and that's what all these bureaucrats always tell me. Oh, Peter, that's part of the process, in this the federalization of the European Union. Which, of course, I always turn around and say, have you asked anybody if they want that to happen, other than the bureaucrats that live in their palatial homes in Brussels? I mean, did you ever ask the people? Oh, no, you haven't. That's why there's the rise of populism.
Yes.
Okay.
No,
I mean, for me, it's more of an indication of the relative failures of the European Union experiment, and not any meaningful criticism of Russia. I mean, just like you said, I mean, where's the adjudication? Where are the trials going to be? Who's going to run the media? I mean, who's going to run the elections? I mean, or are you just talking about colonizing Russia? Is that what you want to do?
And I mean, you set up this 24/7 TV station. And who's going to be watching this? I mean, it's like, where is the audience in Russia that wants to watch this new propaganda? Because after all, the Russians can already watch BBC, CNN, and all of the international news networks. So now all the EU's offering a 24/7 propaganda channel. People want to watch that. Hey, we want propaganda telling us about how great Navalny is. I mean, it's laughable. And as you say, I mean, they're talking about this investigation, and you say Putin's crimes against the Russian people, and you mean there's a court in Brussels that has adjudicatory powers in Russia to investigate? How is it even going to? What are the mechanics of conducting an investigation? You apply for a visa. We would like to come and investigate the Russian government's crimes. Would it be all right to come into the country? No, it wouldn't. Goodbye.
But that's why it's an orientalist mindset. I mean, it's like Sykes-Picot. We have to modernize the Middle East, okay? And we're going to draw all the lines, haphazardly. Some people say both of them were under the influence of alcohol when they were drawing the lines. Maybe that's just folklore. But I mean, it's the same kind of orientalist mentality, is that they have to save the Russian people from their own leaders. I mean, haven't we heard this before so many times? Okay, and it doesn't work. And interestingly, looking at the document that you quoted, did anybody ask what the Russian people want? Have any of these fanatics ever considered what Russians want?
Right. No, exactly. They're all victims, so we have to step in there and to rescue them. But it is very bizarre because you've had that kind of colonial mentality, the missionary who rides to the rescue of the maidens who are being raped and tortured by horrible rulers. And here we, the advanced civilization, are rushing in to rescue that maiden. It's kind of bizarre to do this in the case of Russia, because Russia is a significant economic power, a very significant military power, very significant cultural power. It's an ancient country. It's been a part of Europe, part of the European world system of states for centuries. Hey, this isn't some backwater in dark Africa, and this isn't 1883. I mean, so you're coming in to rescue the Russian people is laughable.
You know me pretty well, and I try to stay away from Second World War and pre-Second World War analogies. But remember when it was that with the Soviet Union after the Stalin's war against Finland, all you have to do is kick in the door and the whole artifice will fall down. Remember that phrase? That was right before. Well, that was the thinking behind Barbarossa. And this mentality. See, I think we said it before, but it's important to reiterate. Their perception. This is Putin's Russia. Well, no, it's Russia's Putin. Okay. And that's why, they've got everything reversed here. I mean, I have said to people to the point where I'm blue in the face, it doesn't matter if it's Putin running the country or not. Whoever follows him is going to be very similar. that president will be looking after Russia's national security interests. So, I mean, just because one leader comes and goes, you think it's going to be a completely different change, okay? It's not. And if you look historically, for hundreds of years of Russian statehood, that is the case.
Right,
That
right.
is the case. I mean, there's a very famous saying, and I actually, after living here for a long time, the saying is, it's true. The saying is, Russia is never as strong as it appears. It's never as weak as it appears. Okay, and that is the constant. Okay, and now you have these people in their fantasies,
Right.
and I think it's cultural and ideologically driven. And they see a place that doesn't exist. That's one of the reasons why I started writing about Russia over 20 years ago. When I would read about it, I'd say, but that's not the country where I'm living in. It's a very different than what you think, okay?
Right.
And so they live with these illusions. When growing up in undergrad and in graduate school, studying Eastern European and Russian politics, who did I come across, George? Eastern European emigres. Peter, we will tell you about Russia. We know Russia very, very well.
Right.
Okay, they were Poles, they were Lithuanians, Latvians, Hungarians, Czechs.
Right. No, I think what's interesting about this is that, again, they've learned very little from regime change operations. The moment you go in to any country with the intent to change a regime into one that is going to do your bidding, you are automatically consigning anyone who's going to cooperate with you into the category of traitor. I mean, who's going to cooperate? What self-respecting Russian who has any hopes for a political future is going to cooperate with entities that actually want to turn Russia back into what it was in the 1990s, a completely pathetic, compliant state that was ready to sell out its natural
Ukraine
resources.
Today.
Yeah, exactly. Or for Western corporate interests. So anyone, Navalny or whoever, who's going to cooperate, who's going to go and work at this 24/7 television station, that's it. No one's going to take him seriously. I mean, you're an agent of foreign powers who wish us ill. And that would be the correct perception. I mean, it's a nutty idea. And again, it shows that they haven't learned anything from regime change operations.
This declaration that was written by the European Parliament, George, it's already been translated into Russian. Our good friend, Dmitry Babich, works at inosmi.ru. And what their mission is, it's a brilliant soft power project. All of the editorials, all the articles from the Washington Post, the Financial Times, Le Monde, all Western media, all about Russia, is instantly translated into Russian. And it is a very, very popular website. And people mock Western media, is that they can't even get the name right. They don't even know the city's name. They got the date wrong. I mean, it's really laughable. So it's not as if, Russians don't know. I mean, I can remember very clearly when John McCain was alive. Russia's nothing more than a gas station, something like that, okay? A gas station with nukes, okay? And so what did you see on the Russian newscast that night? Just John McCain saying it in English with subtitles. Thank you, John McCain. You made our point. See, they don't understand how this works.
Right.
Is that there's no censorship of it. They're not hiding what the West says about us. No, they just do reverse that. This is exactly what they think of us.
Right.
It's very powerful.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And when was it Obama? Obama said something like Russia produces nothing of any value.
Russia doesn't make anything.
Yeah,
it doesn't produce anything anyone wants.
That's it. Something along those lines. And no surprise there that the Russians really, really detest Obama. Whatever Trump, they obviously disappointed in Trump, but they really detest Obama. The image of the way Russian officials talk about Obama is very different in tone from the way they talk about Trump. But yeah, I mean, when you get this kind of arrogant, stupid Western mentality, it has no prospect whatsoever of gaining any traction at all in Russia. And maybe they're not serious about it. Maybe it's all for somehow Western consumption, to mobilize somehow
Yeah.
the Western thing for values. We're for values. I mean, and that's kind of what maybe it's all really about, just to mobilize Western political opinion to think, oh, we're great, we're democracies, we're for values. Because sure as hell isn't going to make any impact in Russia.
Well, all I can tell you is that ever since the end of the Soviet Union, Russians have a penchant for travel. They love to travel everywhere. And so when the Soviet Union came to an end, the major international airport here in Moscow is Sheremetyevo. And when I moved here in 1998, it was an embarrassment. It was awful. It was dirty. It was inefficient. It was rude. Now, when you fly into Sheremetyevo, after waiting for your flight in Charles de Gaulle, you say, thank God I'm home. Because it's clean, efficient, modern. And Charles de Gaulle Airport smells. Have you noticed that? Okay. And all the other airports do. Okay. I mean, the thing is that they're projecting something. It's kind of like after the Rome was sacked for the 15th time, and you have this penniless Roman saying, at least I'm still Roman. But you're standing there naked, your house has been destroyed, you have no money, but at least I'm Roman. Okay, this is what the Europeans are acting on. At least we're Europeans. Okay.
Yeah. No, that's right. Increasingly pathetic. I mean, when you think of back in the day, in the Cold War, when Europe carved out a certain identity. I mean, the Americans were very annoyed about the foreign policy, particularly of Germany, so of the Willy Brandt, Helmut Schmidt, and Helmut Kohl. They didn't like that policy of détente with the Soviet Union. They did it in their own interest.
That's right.
Yeah, but Europe today, I mean, it's just off the deep end. I mean, it's like, we're in a strange situation in which the Americans sound sensible, and the Europeans are just, sound like nutcases.
Yeah, I mean, we can't underestimate, and it's actually a theme that we're touching on more and more often, is that these are just good career lines for people. Right. I mean, there's no downside with being anti-Russian. Okay, you can be even racist about it, and there's no downside. If you say something about the Roma, oh my goodness, it's a career ender. But you can say anything about Russians, and no one is gonna call you on it. And I think that's a lazy way. And again, you have all of these Euro institutes and think tanks and all that, and you just find your little niche. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to work hard, number one. You don't have to say anything particularly interesting. And then you can go into a game of one-upsmanship. Who can go down the rabbit hole deeper? Okay. And this is what you see. And this is the result of it. And the interesting thing is it has at least at this point, meaningful policy impact. When it's part of the rhetoric and the narrative, then you have to worry. I mean, the Nord Stream 2 pipeline should be canceled. Well, I mean, the European Parliament, what power do you have to do that? And who cares what you think?
No, okay. Exactly. No, I think it's a very good point. There's a lot of money splashing around. The EU funds an awful lot of think tanks and keeps a lot of people very nicely employed, churning out propaganda brochures, holding conferences, and providing quotes for journalists. Oh yeah, this is a Nord Stream 2, Putin's pet project. And your journalist writes all this down. Putin's pet project. It doesn't matter. There's absolutely no bearing on reality. It just goes straight into the media. And there's a lot of money here.
And the journal says, you think that this politician is the most pro-Russian, pro-Putin ever? Yes. And you
exactly.
No, it's really interesting how the media actually prods people to say these things.
Right. No, exactly. All right, Peter. We will maintain our laser-like focus on the European Parliament. Do we really have to? But please look us up on Locals. We're there now. Support us to whatever extent that you can. It's hard doing what we do, and any support is a great deal of help. We're also on Rumble. Look us up on Rumble. And Peter, I forgot to mention, where are we on Locals?
We're at thegaggle.locals.com.
Exactly. And if you like The Gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye.